This training is for social service level employees and was originally presented at our December 22nd, 2014 staff meeting by our Executive Director, Lucy Armistead. I am recording it today so that staff that were unable to attend the meeting on the 22nd can still have benefit of the education presented, and so that they can receive staff training credit as needed for their employee files. As you know, each staff member is required to have at least 15 hours per calendar year of staff education. This training will provide 1.5 credit hours when it is also completed with the required quiz, the answering of questions that will be included in the email that is sent to each staff member with this video link. Also, every staff member who is completing this education must acknowledge that they have watched the full program by leaving a comment in the YouTube link. So that will give us awareness of the date that each was done, each staff training was viewed, and hopefully you could also complete the quiz on the same date and email that back to one of our office administrators, probably Jenny or myself. Okay, so this training is about our current programs through All Blessings International, and it's designed to give you some awareness of the eligibility and current processes that each of them include. Programs are constantly changing in the world of international adoption. It's so funny to think about how families were guided back, a few years ago even, on the process and how much they have changed even over the past few months. For example, with Haiti, the process has changed dramatically. So because we offer so many program options for prospective families, it really is important for each caseworker to understand the eligibility criteria and present up-to-date information to the families that you're working with. You are welcome to always email program coordinators. Like if you're having a session with a family adopting from one country or another, you can certainly email that program coordinator before your first meeting, and then make sure you have most recent notes so that as they ask questions, you're best prepared to answer them. A quick note about questions on cases. As you know, I've been with this agency and in the world of international adoption for a number of years, but even I don't try to give specific information on cases when possible. My kind of go-to answer is, well, my understanding of the current program is, blah, blah, blah. Whenever I'm giving time frames and things like that, but I always qualify it with the most recent information will come from your program coordinator. So if you're adopting from Haiti, you might want to verify that with Diana or Julia, and the same goes for any other program. So it's good to know where things are today, but also be prepared to advise your families that they should be talking to their program coordinators directly to have most recent up-to-date information. One thing that Lucy did include, that final note that ABI families may change between programs if the program that they're adopting from has a revision or a process that makes that program no longer the best option for their family at a minimal cost. So that means, for example, families that were adopting from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. A year or two ago, things were going pretty smoothly. We had a few families signing up and expecting a several months long process. Whenever the door to Congo adoption slammed closed a few months ago, of course, that made the program a very different option for their family. So certain Congolese certain families adopting from the Congo will choose to change to a new program. For example, we have a Congo family that is now adopting from China, and they were able to move between those programs at little financial cost. The agency fee part is generally applied to another ABI program. Now, there's some costs that, of course, will be due and we can't handle, like anything specific to the program or completing the family's dossier. They won't be able to use their same Congo dossier for a China adoption, of course. So those types of fees we can't really do anything about. It's just what it is. But the agency fees we are able to assist them with. Okay, Burkina Faso is a pretty new program for All Blessings. We've been accredited in Burkina for quite a while, for a number of years, as Kentucky Adoption Services. However, we didn't really do anything with that program because at the time the country and the process was being well served by another agency. Well, that agency, I believe it's Adoption Advocates, went out of business not quite a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. And because All Blessings was already accredited in Burkina, they had asked us to assist with their ongoing cases and then continue that program. So that's what we've been doing, and that's been a nice program. The attorney and the missionary family there are excellent. They're a great resource. I know that Kim Gray in our Missouri office really appreciates working with the attorney involved. I believe her name is Ruth. But she coordinates the Burkina Faso program. This is a special needs and older child program, special needs at minimum, or minor special needs at minimum, of course. And Lucy gives the example that we did help with a placement of a child that has albinism. Only married heterosexual couples can adopt, and they must have at least a 5-year marriage. Singles are not allowed to adopt from Burkina Faso. Adopted parents have to be between the ages of 30 and 55 years and must be at least 15 years older than the child they plan to adopt. And if they're in that age range, that works pretty well. That works easily. The Burkina government likes for the adopted child to be the youngest in the home, and no child in the home of a similar age. So that's a really good that's a really good standard. As you guys know, we always prefer for families to be adopting a child within the natural birth order. Some programs, for example, Haiti, that's not the same requirement, I guess, or we don't have the same opinion, and I'll talk about that whenever we go on to the Haiti discussion. But for Burkina Faso, youngest child in the home. They don't like artificial twinning, of course, so that's what that means. No child of a similar age, no more than 4 children in the home already. Time frames 18 to 24 months, and the families will spend about 2 weeks in country. Only 1 trip is required for Burkina Faso. We do have a relationship with a missionary family that's living over there and serving in an orphanage at this time. This is a family that is actually from Kentucky, and lovely family. They adopted a blind child into their home, and this was one of our caseworkers' favorite families ever. But it's pretty neat that there is that connection. There is an American over there that sometimes helps to ease the worries of anxious adoptive parents. Okay, our China program is new, related to the merger of families through international adoption into All Blessings. Salome Lamarche coordinates the program. Salome is from Evansville, Indiana, but she does travel into our Kentucky office 1 or 2 times a week to take care of things that are needed. Non-special needs, special needs, and special focus children are available. Non-special needs, of course, means a child that doesn't have any known medical issues, although of course every family needs to be prepared for issues related to any adoption, any orphanage experience and things like that. Um, the non-special needs program takes right now 7 or 8 years. It's not a very viable option for families that are seeking to expand their family through adoption. There are a few families still logged in the non-special needs program, although of course by this point most have withdrawn from the process or adopted a child with special needs, which is a good program. Special needs program, of course, child has an identified special need. This can be a very minor condition, such as missing or extra digits, a repaired heart condition, repaired cleft lip, cleft palate. We'll see a child with a club foot or a concerning birthmark or things like that. Of course, to more severe. Now, the more severe cases go into the special focus category, and those, according to new requirements that just, well, not requirements, according to new process that just came about a few weeks ago, a child with special needs who has been waiting for at least 3 weeks is then moved to be identified as a special focus child. So, although at one point special focus children would have to wait a number of months before, a special needs child would have to wait a number of months before being considered a special focus child, now it's a much shorter time. So it's expected that the special focus children will not be as significant a medical need as previously. But as far as the your understanding goes, special needs versus special focus kids, special needs are generally minor, special focus are more significant. China eligibility. China eligibility are pretty strict on a couple of areas, though there are exceptions that are routinely made especially for special focus kids. The 30 years of age, that's a definite. Every adoptive family must be at least 30 years old at the time that their dossier is presented to the People's Republic of China. And then a maximum age of 50 for non-special needs or 55 for special needs. And you guys can read through that when a couple adopts together. The younger party is over 50, the age difference between the younger and the adoptee should be no more than 50 years. Single applicants are allowed to adopt special focus kids, assuming they are heterosexual and female. China requires that married applicants must be married for at least 2 years, and if either has a history of divorce, they must be married for at least 5 years. So that's not usually a problem for most families. Additional eligibility criteria for adoption from China includes that the adoptive family must both have at least a high school diploma or more. They do accept vocational training as well, and no more than 2 prior marriages combined. So that means that if a family the mom has been, this is their third, the mother's third marriage, but the father had not been married before, that would be acceptable. If the mother had been married twice before and the father had been married once before, and they have, say, a very stable track record of their marriage for much more than 5 years, and there were some extenuating circumstance in the prior marriage, perhaps the mom's first marriage occurred when she was a teenager and it was 6 months long, and can we really count that one? Sometimes we can have exceptions made on those types of cases. That would be an example of a likely exception made. Parents must be physically and mentally healthy. The CCCWA does have some specific opinions about physical and mental health. intellectual disability, HIV positive, or active contagious illness are not accepted. Generally, if an applicant is in a wheelchair, it's not accepted for adoption from China. Mental health issues are generally not accepted. However, if a parent is on like a very low dose of, say, an antidepressant and can document excellent prognosis and that the condition is well under control, that might be accepted. Ideally, the adoptive family will not have any need for any medications involving mental issues or emotional issues, and will not have any disabilities. There are some conditions that are just an automatic no-go for China as well. Certain blindnesses and hearing issues won't be accepted. However, sometimes when the family with that issue is seeking to adopt a child with the same issue, as long as the other parent is very physically healthy and does not have that condition. Okay, so for example, a blind parent wants to adopt a blind child, or a parent that has deafness wants to adopt a deaf child, and the other parent is healthy and does not have that condition. Things like that may be approved. Okay, other eligibility issues for China include severe facial deformation, long-term illnesses are generally not accepted for adoption from China. If the illness is very well controlled and the other partner is very healthy, then that might be a possibility of an exception. When Salome has a family that may need an exception for China, she is able to run that condition by our staff in Beijing, and can generally have an answer within a week or two about whether that condition might be accepted. Vital organ transplants within the last 10 years also are generally not approved. Occasionally you can get an exception, with all other things being perfectly within the China requirements. Okay, no medication for depression or anxiety in the past 2 years, and has a healthy body mass index of less than 40. And you guys can just run a body mass index calculator online and check a family's height, weight to see if China might be a good possibility for that family. Okay, China requires financial stability with at least $10,000 of income per family member, including the child or children to be adopted. So what that means is if a family, mom, dad, and they already have a son in the home and they want to adopt a daughter from China, that family must earn at least $40,000 for $10,000 per parent, the child already in the home, and the child to be adopted in order to be eligible for adoption from China. China does like for adoptive families to have a minimum net worth of $80,000, and I know that kind of sounds like a lot for a lot of families, but once you're able to calculate through any equity in the home, long-term investments, things like that, many families find that their net worth might be a little higher than they had realized. Singles must have a net worth of at least $100,000. And then, of course, income should not include, government subsidies and things like that, foster care fees or whatever. Financial criteria might be relaxed if it is above the local average living standards. So, of course, what that means is the cost of living in Kentucky, of course, is very different than the cost of living in New York or LA. So although in Kentucky, the $40,000 can provide a pretty decent standard of living, that's not the same thing in larger cities where there's a very different local average income. Parents, of course, must have the time and energy for the adoptee, and singles may not have more than 3 children in the home, with the youngest at least 6 years, in order to be eligible for adoption from China. Okay, no criminal history, of course, is important. Have a good moral characters. No history of domestic violence, sexual abuse, abandonment, or abuse of children, even if not arrested or convicted. And no history of taking drugs, including opium, morphine, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, etc. Now, as we all know, sometimes an adoptive family has an issue from their past, let's say a youthful indiscretion that resulted in an arrest, possibly related to alcohol or marijuana or things, something like that, and has established a history of a stable and law-abiding character. Now, those types of things can generally be explained in the home study and approved, though with, of course, no guaranteeing and exceptional stability presented in the report. A history of alcohol abuse, but have stopped drinking for less than 10 years. That's generally not approved. Applicants will be considered when prospective adoptive parents have had 3 or fewer criminal records with minor violations and no severe outcomes, and the time of correction has reached 10 years, 5 or fewer records of traffic law violation with no severe outcomes. Now, during our training session in the office on the 22nd of December, I did inquire a little further about this with Salome, and she stated that the part to concentrate on is no severe outcomes. So, although we might have traffic violations reported on the administrative office of the court that exceed 5 violations, if they're things like failure to complete a stop at a stop sign, or a speeding, violation that's minor, or a parking issue, those don't really count. So we need to focus on the piece of that says no severe outcomes. And of course, if you guys have families that you're concerned about or are wondering, is this going to work for China, email Salome, talk to her, and let's make sure. China's timeframes. Okay, non-special needs or special focus cases are well over 7 years at this point. Referrals for special need or special focus cases are estimated at between 6 and 24 months after the parent's dossier has been completed. Now, in some cases, for example, with a single female, you can get most of their dossier finished. A family can complete most of their dossier so that whenever the referral comes, they're ready to go, although they don't actually turn in their dossier until a special needs focused family has been identified. So this is where timeframes can get a little tricky. China is very specific on the timeframes, the document's age, and so it's important that families are always aware of their dates. This is something that Danielle watches very carefully whenever she's working with a family on their dossier for China, usually through the special needs, not the special focus program. And then if a family, of course, is approved for the special needs program, which means they're married and they meet all of those requirements, then they can go ahead and finish their dossier, have that logged in, and when a child with a very minor need becomes available, they would be in a really good place to accept that referral. So, but for the special focus families, the families that don't qualify for special needs adoption that are only approved for special focus kids. For those types of cases, many families will wait until they have a referral before they complete their dossier. Once that referral comes, the clock starts counting, so the families have to have everything done within, I believe, 6 months. But for confirmation on that, you guys are welcome to email Salome. Travel in China is about for 2 weeks. Families enjoy a very safe trip. They're met at the airport by our China staff. They're taken to each of their appointments. We are actually working on a video, an interview with our China staff that we can prepare for families so that they will have a good understanding and a good expectation of what they will experience when they go overseas. China notes, Lucy included that age limitations are dated from the login date. So if a family is adopting a non-special needs child or a special needs child but are on the cusp of aging out, their age is based on the login date. That's what's considered. So if the family was within the age limitations whenever their dossier was logged in, which means given to the CCCWA to wait for an adoption match, then they will qualify. Applicants with an expired government approval may not be matched until approval is provided. So this really applies to those cases that the family has completed their dossier and they have had a I-800A approval that has expired. In those cases, the family will have to make sure they have a recent government approval before they are matched. Okay. Post-adoption report changes have been modified. About a year ago, the China requirements changed. It was probably 2 years ago at this point. But the China requirements changed to where post-adoption reports were required at 1, 6, 12, 24, 36, and 60 months after the child's arrival. That was 5 years of post-adoption reports, and it's great in that, you know, the Chinese government, of course, had assurance that the child was doing well over the long term, and probably rooted that 5-year requirement out of concern for notification and disruptions and things like that. That's just my speculation. I could be wrong. But it was still tough for families. Doing post-placement reports over such a long period can be hard for agencies and hard for families to keep up with. So about 2 months ago, month to 2 months ago, the post-placement requirements changed so that new families will only need to have the 1, 6, and 12 months, excuse me, they had to have 6, 12, 24 months written by an agency. Now, our agency likely will continue to require that 1 month post-placement report because of a standard of best practice and ensuring that the child and family are doing well. Although nothing is set in stone at this point on All Blessings' opinion there. So the China requirements changed so that the 6, 12, and 24 months must be completed by an agency, and then the 4th, 5th, and 6th reports, which are a 3-year, a 4-year, and a 5-year report, can be self-reports by the families. There are still some logistic issues that are being figured out there. For example, how we are going to advise these families to complete their post-placement reports by themselves in the same format that an agency does. But we're working through that. More information will come on that later. Sorry if that part is confusing. If you guys have questions about that, just email me. I'm not sure that I did the best job explaining that part. Okay, so the Haiti program is coordinated by Diana Bonney. Primarily, it is with children 2 years and over, and there's a lot of sibling groups that are in need of adoptive families. The Haiti eligibility, that part has not changed significantly in the past couple of years. Opposite sex married couples with at least one parent at least 30 and both parents no older than age 50. That is a change. Probably 1 or 2 years ago, the Haiti adoption laws from the 1970s required that both parents be at least 35, and that was tough for a lot of families. There were a lot of great families that were ineligible for adoption based on that criteria. However, so that has been relaxed. So only one parent has to be 30. So you get a 31-year-old husband and a 25-year-old mom can adopt from Haiti based on that age criteria. 5 years of marriage or documented cohabitation. That's a change from the 1970s laws as well. Back in the 70s, the law back in the 70s that were applied up until 2013-ish required that both parents needed to be married, or required that the family needed to be married for at least 10 years. So 5 is relaxed. Families may have any number of biological and adopted children provided they can provide for the newly adopted child, and Haiti will not permit same-sex couples to adopt. 2 trips are now required for adoption from Haiti. The first trip is a bonding trip, and both parents are required to be in country with the child for 2 weeks. Period, paragraph, no exceptions. If any of your families ask for an exception, the answer is no way. It is not permitted for one parent to travel. It is not permitted for one parent to travel, or both parents to travel, and one parent to go home early. That stuff is just not going to happen. Both parents have to be in Haiti for the 2-week bonding trip. The estimated time frame for adoption from Haiti at this point is 24 to 36 months, although changes keep occurring with timeframes and processes in Haiti. They're still kind of figuring out their implementation of their adoption processes under The Hague and trying to figure out how to best apply them. So we're kind of in a learning process, in my opinion, here. Things are still moving with adoption from Haiti. We've had a number of kids. We've had a number of referrals, actually, that we were very excited about. But it's just not all the way consistent and smooth at this point. Okay, so IBESR, which is the central authority in Haiti, has recently released a memo stating that there will be a quota of 17 cases submitted per agency per year, including special needs and intrafamily adoption. We're not sure if that same requirement will be applied to all blessings cases or not. It is conservative for us to proceed and to expect that it is applied in that way. But we're just, we don't know for sure. Haiti did have a quota in place maybe a year ago, and which was 1 dossier per month. And All Blessings was able to submit many more than the requirement. We'll see what happens there. Because of this, All Blessings has decided that we're not going to be accepting any new business agreements at this point. I'm not sure how long that will be in place. The note says to check with the office, but I do know that it was recently decided by Diana and Lucy not to accept new business agreements for Haiti at this point. In the future, of course, we will be again. The new list of adoption agencies that are accredited for cases in Haiti just came out a couple of weeks ago, and All Blessings is proud to be included on that list again. So that's where things are right now with that program. Hong Kong is a really neat special needs program. Kim Gray in the Missouri office coordinates the Hong Kong program. This is one for waiting children with moderate to major special needs. Down syndrome is a frequent need that we see with these cases. A note about Hong Kong is that the social work program there is very good. We're often impressed by the good social work questions and content of referral information provided by the cases. That's a really neat part of this program. The children's social workers knows these kids. They know their personalities. They know their quirks and kind of where they'll fit best into families, and that's kind of neat. Emily Matthews in Missouri has handled this program for quite some time, and so Kim is taking care of it now. But Kim's relationships and contacts with Emily's relationships and contact with the Hong Kong social workers with the ISS, the International Social Service, has been very positive. It seems that the time frame and things like that of cases often depends on the social worker that has the case. There's some social workers that are very efficient with documents and some that are not so much. Oh, and if you have a family that might be interested in the Hong Kong program, there are a list of special needs with pictures and the needs, really a bio on each child, a brief bio on each child that is waiting for an adoptive family. So a family can always request that list and see if the needs of the waiting children might match their level of openness to a child, and determine if that might be a good opportunity for their family to pursue. Hong Kong eligibility. All parents must be between the ages of 25 and 55, married for at least 3 years. Previous divorces have to be very well documented. A minimum income of $30,000 annually for families of 3, basically the parents and the child. So that's pretty similar to China's requirement. Single women with adequate support and childcare can apply, and be prepared to answer in-depth questions about each family. These are the minimum Hong Kong requirements. In practice, however, a young family 26, 27, is going to be very carefully questioned about their readiness to adopt and suitability for adoption and things like that. Same goes with minimum income. I mean, Hong Kong is going to want to see that a family can really well care for the child that they're adopting. Single women are going to be asked a lot of questions. I have a single woman that has recently been approved for adoption from Hong Kong, but it did not come without a number of questions about how she's going to raise this child and what male influences she has in this child's life, and guardianship concerns and child care issues. I mean, whenever a home study is submitted to the ISS social worker for review, she's going to read that carefully, and she's going to ask a lot of questions. More so than a social worker here in the U.S. would of a child to adopt. So these social workers really know these kids, and they are really committed to seeing that it's a good match. And so that's something that I really appreciate about the Hong Kong program. They really want to know that it's a good match, and they'll keep the kids there if it's not a good match. Meaning, just because a family says, "Oh yeah, I can do it, I can take this," if they're not convinced of that, if they're not confident that this is a good match, they'll say they won't approve. Even though the family meets all of the minimum requirements, they will not present that match if they don't agree. Hong Kong timeframes. It is a waiting child program. So The frame from dossier submission really vary based on the children that are becoming eligible for adoption. And also they vary based on the social worker that is assigned and advocating for the child. As I mentioned, some social workers are very fast in completing the child's dossier, the child's paperwork, and others are not so much. Also, the Hong Kong timeframes depend on the state that the adoptive family resides. Families in Kentucky, Missouri, and Indiana, because they're homesteaded by our agency, will have a lesser time frame and honestly are preferred than families outside of these states. It can take an agency, over many months. I want to say close to a year to be approved by the government for home studies for their children. So I know that in the past, Emily has handled a case getting an agency, I believe in Florida or New Jersey, approved. It took many months to get the agency approved in order for the family from that state to adopt the child. Whenever there's another family in Florida or New Jersey, they will be referred to that same agency, and then that approval process of the home city agency is kind of bypassed. So families in Kentucky, Missouri, and Indiana that are homesteaded by All Blessings are much preferred for this program. Travel time is estimated at 1 to 2 weeks. It's a pretty pleasant trip. The Asia trip is always tough, just flying from U.S. Because it's just a lot of flight issues. It's a lot of jet lag and all. But the trip there, or the experience while in country, is pretty positive. The Korea program is a network program. This is mostly an infant program through Americans for International Aid and Adoption, AIAA. Their placements occur through the Social Welfare Society, the SWS, in Seoul. Therefore, because it's a network program, it's only open to our families in Kentucky, Indiana, and Missouri. Infants are typically under 2 years of age. Parents must be between the ages of 25 and 44 and married for at least 3 years. Previous divorces are accepted. Korea's pretty flexible on this one, in my opinion. If there's a good reason for more than one divorce, they will certainly hear it. But they're going to ask about previous marriages, of course. Health history is a big deal for the SWS, not so much with Korea as it is for the agency in Korea that's matching the kids, including a current body mass index of less than 30. Okay, so again, you guys can calculate the body mass index, the height versus weight of your prospective adoptive parents, and see that they are within that standard. Have to be less than 30. For China, they have to be less than 40. Korea have to be less than 30. Criminal history is considered on a case-by-case basis. Again, I think that they are a little more flexible on this than some countries are, like drinking and stuff like that. If a parent had a DUI 10 years ago and it was a one-time thing and have showed appropriate rehabilitation and use alcohol moderately or mildly or not at all anymore, they're willing to hear that. Financial status is a very big deal for the SWS. They like to see adoptive parents that have the balance of their adoption fees ready to go. And they want a family to have at least $30,000 in their checking account. Or otherwise have access to that. Again, sometimes families can arrange for their adoption fees to be available in a money market account or whatever, through loans from their 401k or from a home equity loan or whatever. But that fund will be carefully considered for an application. If the family is adopting a family member, however, that seems to be a little bit looser. For example, I have a family that's adopting a sibling of a child that they had previously adopted. They don't yet have that money in the bank, but they have a good plan in place for it, and they're working towards that, and it will be there before it's needed. And that case has been accepted, of course. Estimated time frame is 12 to 24 months. 2 trips are required. A few years ago, you didn't have to travel to Korea to adopt. The babies from Korea could be escorted to the United States, and mom and dad would go to the airport to pick up baby. That's not the case anymore. 2 trips for Korea adoption are needed. For the first trip, the prospective adoptive parents will meet the child. They will also attend a court hearing. Once that case is approved, then it can advance on. There can be, I would say, between 6 weeks and 6 months between the 2 trips, the first one and then the pickup trip. I just met with a family for their first post-placement recently, and their trip was, they had the 6-week time frame between the 2 trips. They met another family there, also from Kentucky, though not through our agency, there the same time that they were, that still had another month expected before their trip would be approved. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of rhyme or reason on why some families have short trips or short time frames between trips and some families don't. That's just what we're seeing. A few notes about Korea adoption that are not included on the PowerPoint are that Korea does not like military families. They want to, U.S. military families, of course, they want to have families that are going to be staying put for a while. They don't want a family at risk for moving a lot. Korea program has traditionally really valued the home study assessment, and they rely on the home study workers to assist with referrals, though I usually do that through our agency and work with the family on the referral acceptance and the consideration of issues and things like that. They do value the role of the home study agency and the relationship they have with the families. For that reason, they don't want families moving during post-placement phase, if at all possible, because, as we all know, a family is more willing to discuss their challenges in the child's adjustment or their role or whatever with a social worker that they know and they feel comfortable with. They know they're not going to yank this kid out of the family right away or something if a parent expresses a worry or concern about how this bonding is going. And of course, I'm just giving an example there. So Korea does not like the families to move. They also don't want a military family. They don't want to set a child up for being orphaned again by a military family that may go into war. Okay, so military is generally, approved very carefully. I have 2 military families right now. One that is approved for adoption from Korea. They live in Kentucky, but he already has plans to retire in the next 12 months with no risk of deployment at all. So because of that, they will approve this family for adoption. I have another military family that he's really trying to get approved, and this is a neat case because the mother is half Korean, the grandmother is Korean, and still lives. The mother's mother still lives in Seoul. It's really a neat opportunity that this Korean child would have an opportunity to be raised in a family with a full-blooded Korean grandmother. However, because he's not in the position of being able to retire in a year, he is going to probably be moving in the next 18 months, which means he won't have the opportunity to complete the full post-placement experience with his social worker. I don't think, it does not look at this point that they will be approved for adoption from Korea, which is a real shame. We've kind of brainstormed some ideas that might make his family a more desirable option for the SWS, including that maybe the parents go over and meet the SWS in person so that they can get to know them and feel comfortable, including that if there's a concern about the post-placement period, that they go ahead and make arrangements with a post-placement agency and meet them in person a couple of times ahead of time. There's some options there. So this particular family wants to try everything possible so that when the opportunity, that they know they've done everything they can before they give up on this idea of Korea adoption. So we're working on it. I'll let you guys know if it happens or not. Another quick note about post-placements and Korea adoption are that post-placements now must be done at 1, 2, and 3 months in the family's home, and then 6 and 12 months. The 6 and 12 months, as I understand, don't have to be in the home, but the 1, 2, and 3 months definitely do. It is likely that this is due to the Korean government's reaction to the death of a child that was adopted from Korea into an American family. This occurred, I don't know, maybe 18 months ago, and the child had only been home for a couple of months, and it appears that the father just lost control and was physically aggressive with the child, and it resulted in this tragedy. For this reason, the Korean government is trying to do everything possible to see that families are well screened and well supported in the pre-placement and post-placement phase. They have instituted a requirement on mental health screenings. There are a few extra tests that now must be done at the requirement of the Korean judges to see that there are no mental health issues, and that they're doing everything possible to see that these children are placed in safe environments. So that'll be done through through kind of the beginning of the process, the home study, and following the home study, and then the results will go overseas. But post placements in home, 1, 2, and 3 months, definitely. Okay, Latvia is a program in Eastern Europe coordinated by Kim Gray in our Missouri office. These children are typically between the ages of 9 to 15 years old when they arrive. Sibling groups are available. And this is a really neat program because the children, as members of the European Union, enter the United States on a visitor's visa before the adoption is complete. So that's really, really neat. What happens is the adoptive family, once matched with the child, will travel to Latvia pretty quickly after receiving the referral, and will bring the child home with them for their first trip. The child comes to the U.S. on a visitor's visa and stays with the family. On the second trip, the adoptive family goes back to Latvia. I believe only one parent has to travel. The child stays in the U.S. during that trip. So one parent can go back to Latvia to do what they have to do there, and then comes back to the U.S. That's a short trip. And then on the third and final trip, both parents and the child go back, finalize the adoption, an adoption visa is issued, and then the family comes home. There are a number of hosting programs for adoption from Latvia. We might do that in the future, but at this point have not set up to do Latvia hosting programs. It's kind of a neat way that families can get to experience the personality and needs of the child, and hopefully be able to adopt them later. Latvia eligibility, married couples and single women are allowed. Singles, though, are only accepted on a case-by-case or limited number. Prospective adoptive parents must be at least 18 years older than the child they are seeking to adopt. And this is a waiting child program. If you guys have questions about this program, or you have a family that might be a good candidate for this program, Kim Gray can get you information on the needs of the children. She can get you a list of the children that are waiting for adoption. Let's see, yeah, it's a fast program. The last trip, between the first and the last trip, usually it all happens within about 6 months. In my opinion, ideal candidates for this program are almost empty nesters. Families that have raised their kids and they're about to launch them out into the world, or recently have, and they realize that they have a home that needs more kids and that they want to provide that for a child. In my opinion, families that are not well suited for this program are those that have younger children in the home and have high expectations of behavior and academic achievement and things like that. Of course, those families aren't great candidates for any adoption, but when we're talking about older child and Eastern European adoption, a wise family that doesn't sweat the small stuff, are great choices for this one. Okay, Taiwan is a new program for All Blessings through the Home of God's Love. Now, we did offer the Taiwan program with Cathwell, which is an orphanage in Taiwan, for a couple of years. But now, due to the Universal Accreditation Act, the Home of God's Love, which is a missionary organization that was doing independent adoptions for a number of years, is now in need of an agency to handle that program. The UAA requires that a Hague-accredited agency manage each international adoption program and serve as a primary provider in every adoption case, whether they're a Hague country or not. Okay, so because of that, the Home of God's Love needed an agency because Emily Matthews had adopted her son, Owen, through the Home of God's Love, as well as our new staff member, Maria Goki, who adopted Silas through the Home of God's Love. And in their experience and working so closely with the missionaries there, it was a natural decision that Emily coordinate this program and that All Blessings serve as the primary provider for this one. We're really excited about it. It's a great program. It's a young infant program. It's very affordable for families. Infants are available as well as toddlers and special needs kids. 2 trips are required. The Home of God's Love has some unique and specific eligibility criteria for their adoptive families. Adoptive parents must be between the ages of 25 to 50 years old, no exceptions on that. They must be married for at least 2 years, no exceptions. Active evangelical Christians. This is a number one with the Home of God's Love, especially period. They will only place children with active evangelical Christians. A pastor's letter of reference will be required. Likely a witness statement will be required. Emily and Maria have shared that in their travel experiences, you will be expected to lead prayer and things like that. They are only placing their babies with active evangelical Christians, period. Documented history of infertility and no children. This is required. If a family says, "Oh, well, we want to adopt from the Home of God's Love. We don't have any kids. I don't know if I can get pregnant or not, but you know, we're just called to adopt." That's not good enough. They want families that are unable to have children and that have no children in their home. So a family that's already adopted from the home of God's love cannot adopt again, period. Only active evangelical married Christians with infertility and no kids in the home are allowed to adopt through this program. Of course, they should be in good health and financially stable, and singles are not considered for adoption from Taiwan. I believe I stated that 2 trips are required. On the first trip, you will attend court, according to my understanding. If you have families that might be a good match for this program, you are welcome to talk to Emily Matthews about that. I understand Emily's pretty full with families right now. I'm not sure if she's accepting any new ones at this point, but you're welcome to ask. Taiwan timeframes between 9 and 12 months, and 2 short trips are required. Our domestic adoption program is coordinated by me, Lydia Fusco, and Emily Matthews in Missouri. Of course, domestic adoption is where a mother in the U.S. Decides to make an informed adoption decision voluntarily through our agency. Biological parents view profiles to choose a family. Our favorite adoptive families are families that are kind of open to everything. They're open to race. They're open to history of alcohol or drug use. They're open to open adoption and visits. You know, we tend to see over and over again that with domestic adoption, the families that are just kind of open to whatever God gives them have a smooth adoption experience. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. The families that try to micromanage their domestic adoption are bad candidates here. Don't send those to me because it just won't work. We see it over and over again. You know, if a mother is, or a couple, an adoptive couple is very specific on, you know, only a Caucasian child and only an open or semi-open adoption. You know, we don't want to meet. We don't want to do anything else. You know, some parents will even try to request gender. We don't accept that through all blessings, but some families are that specific, and if they're trying to put God in this box, it's just not going to work. We need families that can be accepting and understanding. Now, not all I don't expect all families to be open to drug or alcohol use, but families that are need to be well informed and educated about what that means. You know, to adopt a child that has this history, they're going to show some issues, and adoptive families must have appropriate expectations in place for them. But it is something that we'll see from time to time. In the past year, I have placed a child that had some pretty significant exposure to Suboxone and heroin. I don't know how, but he did not require any medical intervention on withdrawals after birth. But the birth mother was very open and honest about her history and about her addiction history, and the family was prepared for that. Now, once that child is about 2 years old, we'll probably 2 to 3, we'll be more likely to see what kind of issues he will have. Most likely, the child will have, you know, some ADHD tendencies, some impulse control problems, possibly some sensory issues. But an informed parent that's committed to helping that child through whatever challenge he might have is best for this program. Okay, the ideal domestic adoption family: young, no kids. If they have kids, they prefer to be adopted. Look good on paper, meaning they're able to prepare a nice profile with good pictures of themselves and normal weight. Lucy included that, and we hate to say it, but it's true. I mean, a family that is not considered physically attractive by a birth mom, say in her 20s, is less likely to be chosen than a family that is. And we're just being honest about that. Now, families that meet this requirement might wait a long time, or they might not. And I might have families that don't meet any of these requirements and wait a very short time. The truth of domestic adoption is God has it all under control, and we have to trust Him. And the adoptive family really has to trust Him. They have to trust that they are going to be presented with the situations that's right for them, and they have to trust that they can get through it. I always tell adoptive families, every domestic adoption is a roller coaster ride. Every single one. Doesn't matter how well prepared you are. It's the truth. Your roller coaster might be a kiddie roller coaster ride with just very small hills and valleys and turns, or you might have a pretty scary roller coaster ride. There's no guarantee, of course, of child placement. If a family, especially a mom, if a mom has more controlling tendencies, international adoption is probably a better option than domestic, just because those kids are already made available for adoption, and the process is pretty standard. You know, it's a 3 always follows 2, always follows 1 in most international adoptions. In domestic adoptions, aren't always like that. So I like the domestic program, but it really takes a specific type of family to be most successful with this. Okay, and please note, families that are outside the ideal might still be chosen for domestic adoption. And I think I already covered that. This will conclude our training program on current program statuses for All Blessings programs. I will be sending out this link along with a list of questions that will need to be answered and returned for full credit of the training program. Again, please make sure to add a comment in the YouTube comments list of this video, affirming that you have watched the program in its entirety. Once the comment is listed and the quiz questions are received, then you will be granted a training certificate for completion, and that'll be added to your staff files. And of course, if you need that for your own purposes for any reasons, you're welcome to ask for it. I'm sure you guys understand this, but please don't share this video with anyone else. This is only for use by All Blessings staff. Thanks so much. I think we're done at this point, and if possible, get this done within by the end of the year so that they can be added to your 2014 hours. If you already have staff training completion, you already have completed your 15 hours, it's okay to wait till 2015 to watch the video. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.